You're listening to
the Beer O'Clock.
The Beer O'Clock Show.
You're listening to the Beer O'Clock Show.
It's Beer O'Clock and this is the Beer O'Clock Show. My name is Mark and joining me, as always, is my beer buddy Steve. Hello, Steve.
Hi, Mark. How you doing?
Alright, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Very good. Also joining us this week, an old friend of the show, from the Manchester Beer Week, it's Connor Murphy. Hello, Connor.
Hi, how are you doing?
Fine. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Busy man, but just about holding it together.
Good. This week we look north to Manchester and two beers from the J.W. Lees Brewery. They're 4.1% Manchester Pale Ale and they're 7.3% Old Ale Manchester Star Ale. But before we get to that and a good old chat about the Beer Week, Steve, you got any news, mate?
Yes, mate. Just a couple of bits of news this week because I'm gagging to get into these two beers that have been sent. So the big bit of news from this week is that CAMRA is consulting its members over a possible name change and future. Now, unless you'd had your head buried in the sand last week, you couldn't have missed this because literally Twitter broke over it. Basically, CAMRA is saying that it may move away from the promotion of real ale and instead focus on more pressing issues such as the decline of pubs and targeting moderate drinkers by government health advisors. So they've launched a consultation to look at the purpose and strategy. If you're a CAMRA member, you would have already had that. This is fairly old news, but I just wanted to make sure that we covered it on the show. Next up, new product announcement, and this sounds pretty tasty. I want to give this a try. Innis & Gunn, a brewery that we've not mentioned on this show in a good few years now, who supported us quite a lot in the early days, have released a marmalade, which is made with their oak-aged IPA, and is being heralded as the first spreadable beer. So that's available now. I want to give it a go, but if anybody managed to get their hands on that, let us know what it tastes like and see if it's worth hunting out. And then finally in this week's news, just some new podcast news. Hopefully you would have noticed this, that a new beery podcast has been released now. Bushcraft Beer, produced by Michael Lally, is now available for you to listen to. We met up with Michael last week and we'll be appearing on one of his podcasts in a few weeks, won't we, mate?
Yep, he's going to get millions of downloads on it.
He is for that one, yeah. But his podcasts are slightly different from what we do. They're more long-form discussions. So if that's the sort of thing that you're into, search out Bushcraft Beer on Twitter. You can find his profile linked through to the podcast page. Download it and enjoy. And that's the end of the very short news this week, mate.
Very good. So let's get into these two beers. We'll start off with the much lighter 4.1% Manchester Pale Ale, and we're going to have Connor. We're going to have you talk us through the J.W. Lees story a little bit, I think, because I've never heard of these guys before.
Well, Lees are a very old hand up here in Manchester. They're kind of the oldest family brewer still operating. For those who don't know, in Manchester we have four kind of main family brewers, which would be Lees, Joseph Holt, Robinsons and Hydes, who are still operating today. Obviously steeped in history, all four of them. And Lees kind of fall into that group. They're a big presence around Manchester. They've got lots of pubs as well within their estate. So and Manchester Pale Ale is probably their most prominent beer in many ways. You see it a lot around Manchester, and a kind of good, easy drinker.
I think it's a mark of how prominent a beer is when a beer has its own Twitter feed as well, which I discovered today that Manchester Pale Ale does. It's got its own feed that you can follow. So yeah, it must have quite a following to have reached those dizzy heights.
It's got a nice earthy nose to it.
Yeah, a little bit biscuity on the nose. Little bit of straw in there, like you say, some earthiness. Lovely, bright golden colour as well. You'd be mistaken if you saw that across the bar. You'd be mistaken for thinking that might be a lager. actually the way it looks in the glass. It's got that lovely vibrant yellow colour. It's got a nice frothy head on the top of it. It's a very inviting beer.
Yeah, well, let's get invited and dive into it, pal.
Yes. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. It's that real the kind of bitter backbone that runs all the way through it. I kind of like that. It cuts right through, cleans the palate as you drink, and just a nice bit of kind of floral hop character coming through, and that kind of touch of squeeze of citrus as well. It's one I like drinking in summer actually. When I kind of tend to move from cask to keg beers and prefer something colder and fizzier. Still MPA still on cask does the job in the summer months.
It's got a nice heady aroma to it as you're drinking it. It just kind of fills your cavities with this light straw aroma. How are you finding it, Steve?
I've got to agree with what Connor said there. It does really cut through you in terms of the bitterness. It's a citrus bitterness to it, but it's really refreshing at the same time. And as I was drinking it, the first thing that came to mind was probably the last thing that Connor said there. This is a perfect summer beer. You know, when you're looking for something refreshing and fresh that isn't going to hit you too hard with the hops and is going to give you a lovely balance for the flavours, this just about sums it up for me.
Yeah, it's quite a traditional malt forward golden, isn't it? Bit too much lemony biscuit for me on the flavours though. Bit too bitter.
Yeah, it follows the Lees do a range of pales in the kind of 4 through a late 3% range, and it kind of follows that similar format. So, it like I say, it is quite traditional in the malt profile, very biscuity, but uses American hops, so it kind of differs from what they'd previously done in that sense. So, just providing that little bit more of a punch with the kind of citrus character, that floral character that you get as well.
Okay, what hops did they have in it? Do you know?
It was Mount's Hood, I think, and I'm trying to remember what the
Liberty.
Liberty it was. It was
Yeah.
because it's been through several iterations, this beer, and I think at one point it may even been called Liberty, if I'm right. Just if I'm wrong, but a bit until they settled on this as the Manchester Pale Ale, which the kind of flagship pale representing the city.
And talking of representing the city, so JW Lees are the headline sponsor of the Manchester Beer Week, which is probably the main reason why we've got you on the show this week, Connor, to tell us all about what's happening. So tell us all about it. Give us the background to the event and where the idea came from and how Lees got involved, and yeah, just tell us all about it, mate.
Well, yeah, I can't lay claim to the idea necessarily, because you look at things like Norwich City of Ale, which is, I think it's in its 7th year now, it's going really strong. London Beer City, of course, last year was incredibly successful, and more recently Sheffield Beer Week have been great successes. Looking at Manchester and being from Manchester, having grown up around here, it made complete sense for Manchester to have a beer week as well. It puzzled me why there wasn't one already. So I suppose, as a proud Mancunian, as somebody who's all too regularly in the pub, it seemed like a good idea to set this up. Okay,
and so how did Lees get involved? Because obviously it's a citywide event that you're doing, and like you say, the format very much lends itself to that which we see elsewhere, where there's going to be kind of events and things popping up all over the city. What was the process to getting one of Manchester's biggest breweries involved in it?
It was I made a decision early on that and I wanted to attract sponsorship to make the event as big as possible, and to actually try and maybe differ in some respect to other beer weeks by actually putting on events ourselves. And I knew we'd need investment to do that, so I approached a lot of different breweries, companies around the city, and Lees were one of the ones who came back very quickly, were incredibly positive about what I wanted to achieve, and have not tried to meddle with what I'm doing really, which is that they're very supportive. They believe in what's being done, and have given me the kind of backing to realise it, I suppose. But working with Cloudwater as well, a kind of common name in the modern beer scene in Manchester, and Hawkshead, who've got a big presence on bars in the city and have been really supportive, and Lallemand as well, who produce dried yeast for the brewing industry. And all those guys have kind of been supportive both in terms of kind of providing sponsorship, but also providing ideas and getting on board with taking part in events too. So it's been really good in that sense.
Okay, and what sort of what are the sort of events that you've got lined up? Give us a bit of a feel for what's going to be going on during the week.
Well, we're looking to do two main bookend events. The two events we're going to be organising. The first weekend, on the Saturday, we're looking to hold a brewers market. We're in discussions now with a couple of kind of operators about where we can hold this. And basically that will be a chance for brewers to come, set up, sell bottles, meet the public, and we'll also have a tasting bar there, and some food for people to kind of eat on site and while they're sampling the beers. And on the second weekend, we're holding a street party on the streets in Manchester, which will combine good beer, street food, and a couple of really interesting demonstrations and talks that we're looking at holding as well. But other than that, there's a massive range of stuff going on. This week we've announced that we're offering tours at the Royal Brewery in Hume, which is an absolutely huge facility operated by Heineken. So about as far from the microbreweries of Manchester as you can possibly get. They brew millions of pints every day, and have opened the doors to the public for exclusive tours during the beer week. So other than that, there's beer and food evenings, tastings. We're going to have a couple of really special launch nights for special beers that are being brewed specifically for the festival. So something for everybody to get their teeth into.
It sounds like you've got a real balance of kind of doing things with the traditional old school family brewers that have made the scene so kind of what it is in Manchester, and at the same time getting the right balance with the new and up and coming breweries. You know, you mentioned the likes of Cloudwater being well known in Manchester. Well, you know, again, you can't move at the moment without hearing the name Cloudwater in the UK right now. How important was that for you as part of the organising of the event to get that balance between the old and the new?
Oh, incredibly, yeah. That was one of the stated aims setting out. I think what you find in the beer scene today, and you may or may not agree with me here, but people are kind of siloed. So you have your real ale crowd, the camera crowd. You have people who would quote unquote craft beer drinkers. You have casual drinkers, and it's kind of none of those groups cross paths very regularly, and there seems to be a little bit of animosity even between the groups. So I wanted to bring them together and work as much as possible with all those different strains in getting traditional brewers to work with craft brewers, and getting people who drink traditional beer to go outside of their comfort zone and try something new, and the opposite way around as well. So that's why it was so important. One of the announcements you may have seen this week was that the official beer of the festival is a collaboration between JW Lees and Cloudwater. So
wow,
right.
So that should raise a few eyebrows, hopefully, get people talking a bit. What will come out of that will be very interesting, I think. I've been involved in the discussions with Paul at Cloudwater and Michael Lees-Jones, the head brewer at JW Lees, and there's some interesting things flying around there. JW Lees are keen to kind of push their own boundaries, and Cloudwater are interested in pursuing a different approach to their normal approach as well. So it's great to see those two guys working together.
It's interesting, Connor, just picking up on a couple of things you said there. Firstly, you said about beer drinkers being siloed. That very much, I think, was brought to life by Matt Curtis in a post this week, where he drew this Venn diagram of where people sit with their drinking and where it all crosses over. I've linked through to that in the show notes if people want to have a read of that, because I think it does put into context what you said there about how people seem to sit within their own little corner of the drinking world. And the second point, and I'm wondering if this is going to be a trend that we're going to see this year in terms of the traditional breweries doing collabs with kind of the new wave breweries, because also in the past week we've seen More Beer have done a collaboration with Fuller's. Now, they're two breweries that you wouldn't have necessarily put together. And, you know, in the past we've seen Magic Rock and Adnams have come together. And do you think that's going to be a trend that we're going to see, as maybe some of these more traditional breweries want to start pushing their boundaries, like you say that Lees are looking to do?
I think it's a strong possibility. Knowing the way that Lees have approached this, and just having seen the enthusiasm that they've gone at it with, it gives me real hope that this is something that will replicate time and time again. They do what they do very well, but they recognise that they wanted to try something very different and push the boundaries in order to appeal to the whole wave of new drinkers that have come up with the craft beer scene. So I definitely think there'll be a trend towards that, and hopefully it will start to make people think a little bit differently about what they're drinking and who it's made by, and possibly, and this goes for the kind of new wave of craft beer drinkers. A lot of ire is directed towards CAMRA, sometimes unfairly, because some of their older members are maybe seen as a bit stuck in their ways. But then so are craft beer drinkers. There's a lot of people who won't give kind of traditional ale the time of day, and I think that's criminal as well. You know, I grew up on mild and bitter in Manchester, and so that's given me a kind of different perspective, I suppose.
It's it's again just I mean that very much comes back to the post that I was talking about that Matt wrote in terms of drinkers not willing to give others a go. Just one more question before we come back to the beer, because I don't know about you guys, but it's almost evaporated from my glass while we've been chatting there. Was there ever a point where you were slightly apprehensive about JW Lee's involvement? Because I know in the past they're a brewery that have maybe courted a little bit of controversy with some of their advertising. Where did you sit on that in terms of, was the approach from them to you or from you to them? How did it come about?
So they largely approached me. I kind of put out the feelers to a number of people in the first instance, but then they came back after I'd sent out a kind of event prospectus to people to see if they're interested in getting involved, and Lee's got back to me on the back of that. So my first contact with them came following that, and what I've seen since has been really positive. I think you're always kind of you go into these things always thinking about what the other party wants to gain from it, but the people there have been really supportive, really open to discussion, adaptable, and so it's been a real kind of refreshing partnership in many ways. It's I'm really glad to be working with them, and I didn't the opportunities that have come from it. I didn't necessarily see a lot of those at the start of this. You know, there's a lot of things that have come up since that have surprised me and really pleased me.
Okay, well let's come back. Let's put a pause on that discussion there, and we'll come back to maybe what they've added to the Manchester Beer Week in a while, because I'm keen to certainly get some final thoughts about the MPA. And I'm very keen to open up the other one and get stuck into that this evening.
Yeah, so saying that, Steve, what are your final thoughts on this beer?
It's just extremely quaffable. I think I'm going to hold my hand up, and I said to you before we went on air, I can guess exactly what that beer is going to taste like. I was wrong, because it doesn't taste exactly how I thought it would taste.
No.
What it is, it's this kind of malty, refreshing, citrusy, cut-in beer that just is really, really enjoyable. And as I say, it's one that I would very happily sit in my garden in the middle of summer drinking this all day long.
Yeah, it's really nice and refreshing, lovely and light. Slightly too bitter for me. I would prefer something that's a little bit more sweeter. But hey, that's me. I like my peachy beers.
Never happen, mate. Never happen.
But otherwise,
it's interesting as well because this version's different to the cask version as well. You know, and the cask version might be more up your street, Mark, because it's actually kind of a bit more restrained on the bitterness front.
okay.
And it's slightly weaker in strength as well. The 380 is, I think, the cask version. So
If I'm ever in a Lee's pub, I'll look for it.
I think they're obviously appealing to a certain market with this, aren't they? And you know, for me, I'd probably put it in the same category as, say, like Adnams Ghost Ship. It's kind of that entry level pale ale that you can pick up off of a supermarket shelf.
Yeah, it's very easy. I can see a lager drinker picking it up and not being put off.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But anyway, shall we get into the next beer?
Yes, let's. I'm looking forward to this one.
So this is the 7.3% Manchester Star Ale, which is an old ale. So this is going to be interesting.
it's a while since I've drunk this one, so...
There's a bit of a backstory to this as well, isn't there? In terms of where the idea came from for it.
Yeah, I think this is one that might surprise a few people, but Manchester Star came about as a result of a collaboration with Brooklyn Brewery. So Lee's worked with Brooklyn back in 2001, and as kind of part of an exchange, their head brewer went over to Brooklyn and brewed Manchester Star, and Gareth Oliver came over to Lee's brewery in Middleton and brewed a beer for their pubs as well. So it was a really interesting collaboration at the time, and I suppose quite ahead of its time in terms of what we're doing with Cloudwater and Lee's now.
Very much so. Yeah, and it's also the bottle claims it's been around since 1884 as well. So it was first brewed in 1884.
Yeah, apparently they pulled, it was a recipe they pulled out of their old record books, and it was one that really appealed to them at the time, and kind of after speaking to the guys at Brooklyn, decided this one was the one they were going to go for.
Okay, well, it pours lovely in black with a very light tan head on it. It pours almost like a porter.
Yeah, it's lively in the glass as well. Mine's only just died down. On the nose, I'm getting a little bit of chocolate, maybe some raspberries, some blackberries in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I get the fruitcake. It's with a kind of that slight hint of dark chocolate.
It's like a dark chocolate cake with the berry compote on top. I'm going to get really specific.
Really well put.
Do you mean a Black Forest Gatto, mate, by any chance?
Maybe, kinda, yeah.
And now this isn't. It's not barrel aged or anything like that, is it? Because it's got some of those characteristics coming off it in terms of the aromas, the slight sweetness to it, maybe the depth in there, maybe a little bit of vanilla in there as well. But it looks incredible. It's as black as night. I can't wait anymore. Can we drink, please?
Let's get into it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay, that's a sipper.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's thick.
It's thick, it's sticky, it's sweet, but in moderation as well. It's incredibly well balanced. There's absolutely no bitterness at the end of that. It's just sweetness all the way through for me. I'm not sure about you guys.
It hides the booziness really well as well. I mean,
yeah.
I suppose 7.3 is probably weak these days with some of the stuff we get. But,
sessionable, mate. This is a session beer.
Yeah. But it does hide it really well. It's lovely, like you say, Steve. It's kind of treacly, sweet. It's got a nice backbone of fruit there as well, though. Kind of cherry, slightly tart cherry, and kind of the same fruitcake flavors of kind of raisin and slightly, that malt loaf maltiness as well.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It's like a liquid version of your chocolate brownies, Steve.
It you know what it is. And you know what, I've actually made a batch tonight.
I know you have.
I'm tempted to go and get one as well. But people moan when I eat and talk at the same time. I'm loving it. I mean, from the first sip, I've really enjoyed that, and I was quite excited about this beer. I think I was excited about it for a number of reasons. One because obviously you know the Brooklyn factor, but it just sounded really nice. Now, I know we don't necessarily ever really talk about the branding on the stuff that we drink. I think this is a beer that's let down by the branding on the bottle, because if I saw that in a supermarket or on a website, there's not a single thing that would make me buy that. Just looking at that bottle, I just find it really uninspiring, which I think is a massive shame, because what hides behind that branding is just this absolutely stunning beer.
I think the difficulty is today, these days, it's so difficult to stand out on the shelves, isn't it? And I know what you mean. Branding is constantly evolving and constantly changing. There's a real kind of arms race, isn't there, almost for people to kind of to grab the consumer's attention as they walk by the shelves in the bottle shop or the pump clips on the bar or in a supermarket.
Yeah. And I wonder also whether it suffers because it's in a 500ml bottle, because that's obviously not craft, is it? A big bottle like that. But I'm not disappointed that there's 500ml of it, because I'm really going to sip my way through this evening. So I just want to pick up the conversation again, Connor, in terms of Lees and their input to the Manchester Beer Week. You said you felt as though they've helped in terms of offering support and raising the profile. Can you be more specific in what have they really brought to what you've been doing that maybe you couldn't have done without them?
Well, I think it's their expertise in running. They run 140 venues, pubs throughout everywhere from West Yorkshire down to Anglesey. So it was that was really helpful. That insight into the running of pubs, into what works in those kind of venues was really good. And also the reach. Oh, excuse me. The reach that they provided through those venues in giving Manchester Beer Week a lot of visibility. I think I always knew how to reach like people like you and me, the craft lot. But Lees have inroads into the kind of general public as well. A lot of people in Manchester drink in Lees pubs, so it was really good to be able to get on board with somebody who can put Manchester Beer Week in front of those people and hopefully crack the public consciousness a bit more and open people's eyes to what good beer is and why it's so important.
Well, I've got to say, tonight has certainly opened my eyes, because they're probably not a brewery that I would instantly go for. And, we've been quite fortunate and, to put out a public thanks to Lees as well, because they did send us the beers down to drink on to tonight's show. Well, you sent us the beers, but they gave them to us, which we're really appreciative of. But these probably aren't two beers that I would have picked out to have featured on the show, ever. But I've really enjoyed both of them. And I know we've only just started with the Manchester Star, but for me, that's probably up there as being one of the beers of the season, because it's just everything that I want from a beer in terms of the flavour profile and the finish and how drinkable it is as well. It's just simply stunning.
I could sit and get through a whole cheese board with this alongside me now. I'm disappointed I don't have one.
Why did you have to do that? Why did you have to mention the C word? Because that's all I can think of now.
Yeah. But it'd be perfect, wouldn't it? It's that the kind of balance of flavours would work really well alongside a nice blue cheese, I think, at the moment.
Absolutely. And I take it this is sometimes available in cask as well.
I've not seen it.
Have you not?
Seen it.
Oh,
no. I think it may still only be bottle. It's still only be bottle. I stand to be corrected on that one, but I think a long time ago they did do cask versions of it, but I've not seen it in cask for as long as I can remember, really.
Because I imagine a cask version of that would be absolutely sublime. It would just yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to try. I'd love to try it on cask. Yeah.
I'm going to have to take a moment there.
Steve, do you have any more questions for Connor around the Manchester Beer Week?
I suppose probably the one thing that we haven't covered yet When is it? Firstly, for people that don't actually know.
It's June 10th till June 19th. So we'll start on the 10th, which is a Friday. We've got a launch party lined up, venue lined up for that, which I should be able to announce in the next week or two. And then it runs through till the following Sunday.
Cool. I'm very excited to hear that because I'm coming up for that first weekend as well. So do I get an invite to the launch party?
Oh,
say no.
This is awkward, isn't
Yeah.
it?
You can tell me yes or no later, Connor. That's fine. You can just leave me outside looking through the window at you as you enjoy your party.
We should have a good range of Manchester beers on the bar to kick off the week in style. So yeah, I'm sure you'll be more than welcome.
Good. And also, where do people find out more about Manchester Beer Week?
It's at www.mcrbeerweek.co.uk.
Okay, and is it same on Twitter as well, isn't it? MCR Beer Week?
MCR Beer Week on Twitter and the same on Facebook as well. So yeah, follow me on all of the above, and I'll enrich your lives with all the good stuff about Manchester beer.
So there's no way people can avoid that, really. Yeah, it'll be linked through to in the show notes. Make sure you check it out, and if you're free at some point during that week and you're near Manchester, get up there and give it a visit, because I think it's going to be probably one of the standout events of this year, mate.
I hope so. We've got some great stuff planned. I am working really hard to make sure there's something for everyone, and we've got an announcement coming next week that should be really good and should excite people. We're pairing up 4 breweries for the best of Manchester with 4 of the best from outside of Manchester from across the country. I'll leave you to guess who they might be for now, but each one of them will be doing a collaboration. So we're pairing one Mancunian brewery up with one from outside. Each one will do a collaboration. With the brief being as loose as it has to be inspired by Manchester in some way, shape or form. So whether it's made to be quaffed while listening to Oasis, or whether it's going to be dry black pudding, I'll leave that to the brewers and they can decide. But we'll be making the announcements about the breweries that are involved in that next week, starting from Monday.
Excellent. So keep your eye on the Twitter feed for that one. Is that yeah?
We'll be announcing that all on Twitter, including the venue where those beers will be launched, and some brief details about the launch event as well, hopefully.
Okay, so probably the week after next, we'll make sure we cover that in the news as well, just in case you've missed that on Twitter during the week. So and we'll make sure for the rest of this season, as well as those announcements are coming up, that we continue to cover them in the news as well.
I'll keep you updated.
So, Stevie, do we have an Instagram of the week, mate?
Yes, mate. We've got an Instagram of the week this week, and it's been a tough one for me to choose this week because there's been quite a few that stood out for me. But the one that I went for in the end was somebody that went through the same journey that I did a few weeks ago. They took the 6 Buxton Belgian beers and they did them vertically and then took an amazing picture of the empty bottles after. So for the second time this season, Gammon Baron wins the prize and he's going to get a great big box of nothing sent to him for his collection of empty Buxton Brewery Belgian beer bottles. If you want to have a go at winning your very own empty box of nothingness, put your picture on Instagram, use the hashtag #CheersGuys, and if it's the one that catches my eye, I will send you that prize personally, and I might even sign the box for you.
Very good. Hop topic. Do we have a hop topic?
Yes, mate. Follow on from last week. So last week we were talking about, do we need craft beer bars? And at the time, I think we mentioned this on last week's show, Melissa Cole said, can you follow this up with a question next week asking about customer service in craft beer bars? So we did. So this week's question on Hot Topic was simply, Do craft beer bars need to sort their customer service out? Yes or no? 58% of the people that voted went for yes, that they do need to sort them out. So it by no means a runaway. Some of the comments that we had back on this one, and there's a few people in here that are going to be known to Connor as well. So DCOS, most customer services dire, mirrors less humility in society, but servers in craft bars invariably more arrogant. Mark Johnson said staff would rather talk amongst themselves between pulling pints rather than talk to the punters. Janice at Mrs. Beersod says, absolutely, I won't go into a bar if the service is rubbish. Why would I give them my money if they don't care? Mark the Gas Man said, customer service is lost art, especially for the young. They do not know how to communicate or give eye contact. They're the Xbox generation. And then Jack Uber, who was on a few weeks ago on the Homebrew Show, says, have to admit he's only gone to 2 or 3 craft beer bars, but have always had a great service at them. So, Connor, never being one short of an opinion. I'm looking forward to your views on this one, mate. So we're talking craft beer bars and we're talking customer service in them. Any views either way, mate?
Which version do you want? The censored version, or
just go for it.
I think it does depend on where you go. I think there are 2 strains maybe with some of the early trailblazers in craft beer. I'm thinking of Port Street Beer House in Manchester here, and the like. The customer service was always very good, and they made it their mission to help people understand what they were drinking and to make them feel comfortable, despite potentially being overfaced by the number of options on the boards above the bar. Because at the time in Manchester, those kind of bars were unusual, really, and so there was a lot of education that needed to be done to the consumer. What I would say is we have seen, and I think I agree with some of a couple of the tweets there. There has been a kind of a little bit of a nonchalance with some craft beers bars, a bit of maybe snobbery with some of them as well. I relate to the comment from Mark Johnson about the staff talking and being less interested in serving you a pint and more interested in what they're having for dinner. I've experienced that on a couple of occasions, and they need to just realise why they're there and engage with their customers a little bit more.
Okay, what about you then, Mark? What's your view on this one?
I don't find craft beer bar staff to be any worse than anywhere else. You can go into Wetherspoons and the staff may just be generally indifferent. I've had some shocking service in craft beer bars, but I've had some really good service as well. But I'm in London. They don't really stop to chat to you that much.
It's different up in Manchester, I suppose, and that's probably why you maybe see more of a division up here, because the traditional pubs up here are very, very friendly usually. Well, have been. Then that's what we're kind of used to. You'll sit down at the bar and somebody will talk your ear off for half an hour about the finer points of Joy Division and post-punk.
The only time I've ever had anyone in a pub talk to me, like make conversation with me, is when I knew him personally. Maybe I've just got that kind of face that no one wants to talk to me that much.
I don't think you've got the sort of face that no one wants to talk to you, mate. But when people do try to talk to you, you ignore them.
I do not. How dare you?
You did with me.
Yeah, look where it got me.
Yeah. But that's a story for another day, and you'll be able to catch that story on the Bushcraft Beer podcast. Yeah, nice little segue into that there. Just to pull this week's hot topic to a close, I suppose. My view on it is, I suppose it echoes what both of you guys have said in terms of that there are some bars that do it really well, and as I've said it before on this show. I think Brewdog are one of those bars that have taken the time to train their staff. Their staff will engage with you and they will talk to you. But saying that, I've also heard people talk about Brewdog bars where they've been in where the staff haven't been engaging. They've been more interested in their phone or, as you say, what they're having for dinner. So I think it's a difficult one, but I think you've got to appreciate that sometimes, if you are in a busy city, staff probably aren't going to have the time to stand there and chat to you. If that's what you want, and if that's maybe what you're looking for, then maybe you need to find a quieter pub. So
the one thing they could do though is at least try the bloody beers. that's my biggest complaint is what Brewdog do well, at least, is their staff seem to know what's on the bar and seem to have tried it and understand how the flavours, what flavours make it up. With other places, I've been in some craft beer bars in Manchester where I've asked what the staff think of X beer or Y beer, whatever's on the bar on the day, and this, sorry, don't have a clue, and that gets my goat.
Well, I hate that you go to order. Go on, Steve.
No, I was just going to say, I was literally just going to say that's poor, because I think the staff should know what the beers taste like, because if you've got someone come in, I mean, I go back to my very first experience of drinking craft beer was in the Rake in Borough Market in London, and I went in there as a lager drinker, not having a clue what I wanted to drink behind the bar, and the barman said to me, well, what do you like? And I was like, well, I like yellow fizzy stuff, you know, and he took the time to understand what I might like and then made recommendations as a result of that. So I think the staff need to have some basic training in the beers, and they need to have tasted them as well so that they can recommend them to people.
Indeed. So, Steve, what's coming up next week?
Next week we're going back to Belgium, mate. We are drinking Troubadour Obscura next week.
Okay.
I think I pronounced that right for those folks that are absolutely loving our pronunciation of things this season. but I'm sure somebody would tell me if I haven't.
I'm sure they will. Connor, where can people find you online personally?
So yeah, it's mcrbeerweek.co.uk and MCR Beer Week for the Beer Week. But if you want to find me for any particular reason, it's like the Murphys on Twitter.
Very good. You can find us at beeroclockshow.co.uk, on Twitter at beeroclockshow, on Instagram at beeroclockshow. Steve is on Twitter. No, Steve is on Untapped at Beer Show Steve. I'm on Untapped at Beer Show Mark. Don't forget to grab your Season 9 beer box from Beautiful Beers, featuring all of the Belgian beers from this season. Details on our website, along with 10% off discount codes for Beautiful Beers, as well as ales by mail, beer merchants and Ibria, who we thank for their support as always. Connor, thanks again for joining us, mate. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, cheers, Connor.
Thanks for having me.
Steve, until next week, buddy.
It's been the highlight of my week.
And mine. Bye-bye.